Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Oge Onubogu, and I'm the director of our Africa program here at the Wilson Center. For those of you who do not know, the Wilson Center is a unique institution in foreign policy. I bring greetings from our president and CEO, Ambassador Mark Green, who unfortunately isn't here today. The Wilson Center is a congressionally chartered and scholarship-driven and fiercely nonpartisan institution. As I mentioned, I lead our Africa program here at the Institute, and we address some of the most critical issues facing US-Africa relations. So we are extremely honored and humbled today to host the former president of Nigeria, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo. Before I go into the introduction, there are a few people that we really want to thank for helping us make this event happen today. One of them is Dr. Patrick Utomi, who I can't see. Oh, there he is. My eyes were that way. Dr. Patrick Utomi, who, as many of you know, is a fellow, a visiting fellow here at the Wilson Center. And Dr. Utomi has done an amazing job in helping us make this event happen today. So thank you so much, Prof. I also want to recognize in the audience several members of the African Diplomatic Corps who I can see, some who are still on their way, our colleagues from the US Interagency, and several members of the public who are in the room as part of this conversation. Thank you for joining us for this engagement. This conversation today is the launch of our Africa Leadership Perspective series, where we are inviting former African heads of states and public figures on the African continent to share with us their insights and reflect on leadership on the continent and Africa's role in the evolving global arena. And with that, let me go into the conversation today. And I struggle, it's how do you introduce a man who needs no introduction? So, you know, in many spaces that I've been in and several conversations with him, he's often referred to as Baba. And when you refer to someone as Baba, you know he comes with a lot of wisdom, and he has a lot of wisdom to share with us today. Former President Obasanjo is a highly decorated military officer who has served gallantly in Nigeria and also outside of Nigeria as well. He became head of state of Nigeria in 1976, following the unfortunate assassination of General Murtala Muhammad. And he was also the first military head of state of Nigeria to voluntarily hand over power to a civilian government in 1979. As we all know, Baba is someone who always speaks his mind, who is never afraid to speak his mind, always speaking truth to power. And sometimes when he speaks truth to power, it can also land him in trouble sometimes. And so in him speaking his truth to power between 1995 and 1998, between 1995 and 1998, he spent some time in prison for speaking his truth to power. And when he got out of prison in 1998, he ran for elections and saw Nigeria's transition from military to civilian rule in 1999. And he served as president from 1999 to 2007. Since leaving government in Nigeria, he has really established himself as an elder statesman, playing significant roles within the African Union, setting up structures like the new Economic Partnership for Africa, playing a significant role in the work with the African Peer Review Mechanism, serving as an AU and UN Special Envoy. He's really been around. And at 87 years young, we are delighted to welcome you back again to the Wilson Center. So this is the way we're going to run this conversation today. We basically told Baba that we don't want no prepared remarks. We want to keep this conversational. We want to keep this interactive. So I'm going to start off with two questions for you. And once I get done with those questions, then we will transition it to the audience and make sure that we keep this in conversational style. So my first question to you is really one on leadership. And I know that this is something that you've pondered for quite some time. Leadership on the African continent today is at an inflection point. I think we have seen a return of coups. Over the last few years, even though we've seen rapid economic growth across parts of the continent, that economic growth hasn't necessarily translated to the lives of many citizens. We see citizens questioning the status quo and saying they want to see leadership move from something that they see as being transactional to real transformational leadership. I would love to hear your views on this, to reflect on your time. You've seen it all on your time, and just provide some words of wisdom for us here as we are at this critical point of leadership on the continent.
Director, let me thank you most sincerely for affording me this opportunity. And I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago I was here. I'm happy to be here again. Let me also join you in commending the efforts of my friend and brother, Pat, for not pulling string, you even pull chain to get me here. I appreciate that. The issue of leadership is one issue that we in Africa cannot say we have got right. And we cannot also say we have got it absolutely wrong. There are occasions that we can point out what we did right and where we got together in Africa and did what we should do, and we got what we should get. There are occasions where we have not done what we should do as we should do them. And of course, the results that we got was not satisfactory, if I can put it that way. And before coming to now, and I will come to now quickly, I want us to look back a little bit. When we got independence, I don't want to go beyond back from independence. But when we got independence, our leaders in Africa believed rightly that we needed to have togetherness to be able to move Africa forward. And after they have tried, some regard themselves as pragmatic, some regard themselves as dynamic, whatever. We got OAU. And an OAU set for itself two objectives, mainly. Objective to want to get to rid Africa of colonialism and to move Africa forward together in development. I think we can say that OAU succeeded in the first objective to the extent that by the turn of the century, even apartheid had been demolished in South Africa. But the issue of integration, economic integration, political integration, we seem not to have got that right. And I believe the reason why we didn't get that right is we did not know whether we should put the horse before the cart or put the cart before the horse. In the sense that we were pursuing economic integration and political integration at the same time. And I believe we didn't get it right. But when the 20th century came to an end, we, of course, realized the mistake we have made. We turned OAU into AU. We laid emphasis then on economic integration because we have managed to eliminate colonialism and apartheid, which is the worst form of colonialism we had. Now, and we had AU. We brought in a few measures that we did not have in the OAU. We have Peace and Security Council. We have we call them wise men or wise.
Council of the Wise.
And I believe they are not the only wise people in Africa, but they are. And then we move from just the head of state to a commission where you have a strong commission, all that. Now, as we were going into the 21st century, we had the AU, we had, as you rightly pointed out, we had NEPAD. And if I may just tell the story of NEPAD, just to see what I was chairman of what they call 77, group of 77 plus China. President Thabo Mbeki was chairman of non-aligned group. Bouteflika of Algeria was chairman of OAU before we got. And in 2000, the G6, they were G6 plus one then, they were meeting in Cairo. And I was commissioned by G77 plus China to meet the G6 plus one in Tokyo. President Thabo Mbeki was given the same assignment by non-aligned group. Bouteflika was given the same assignment by OAU. So here were three of us in Tokyo being given the same assignment by three different international organizations, and we were Africans. We were invited by the G6+1, and within 25 minutes we were dismissed. They just saw us, and so we didn't know what to do. So we then came to my room in my hotel, and we said, look, here we are. We have been here. We have been dismissed. What can we do? And we said to ourselves, if they have even not dismissed us with a wave of hand, the way they have dismissed us, and they have asked us what is our program, what will we put out as our program? And that was that gave us something. And we said, okay, from there we set up a team that started to work on what became NEPAD, New Economic for Africa. And by the time we met in Canada, with the same group, we have had something. And we put on the table what we had. And they looked at it and they endorsed it. So what I first want to say is that for us in Africa, of 54 countries, we cannot act in silos and expect something to happen that will be in the best interest of all of us. Even when we were struggling against colonialism, the last stage, we worked closely together. And what brought about NEPAD is working together. And then when we presented it to the G6+1 in Canada, they endorsed it, and it became a focus of what our relationship, what we use to deal with our development partners, our friends. And we went beyond that and we say, look, we must be able to handle misbehavior on our part. So we set up APRM. We said by ourselves, let us correct ourselves, let us sanction ourselves, and we did that. And what then followed was that we were taken a little bit more seriously. We had program and projects, and we moved on. We regarded the last 2 decades, the 1980s and 1990s, as more or less lost decades for Africa. And then in the first decade of the 21st century, we started moving. And what then happened was that at a stage, when we started moving, we were moving with our development partners, we were getting on together. But a few things then happened that did not make us get to where we should get. The togetherness, the collective action that we were having was broken when it came to the issue of Libya. And that was unfortunate because we believe that we could handle the issue of Libya if left in our hands. And I will say this on a number of occasions. When issues were taken from us, from our hands, when we thought we could handle them, and we are not allowed to handle them, how do I put it? They are not handled well. Let me put it mildly. Libya was one. The genocide in Rwanda was badly handled. And we could give examples like that. And when they are mishandled, then we are left with a mess in our hand. We haven't got out of the mess of Libya. But we were able, by and large, to handle, because we were handling it together, but we were in the forefront. We were able to handle the issue of apartheid in South Africa, and we succeeded. So what then happened? I believe that by and large, when I was military head of state, for instance, the way we worked together with the three of us that I mentioned, Thabo Mbeki, myself, and Bouteflika, was unprecedented. And if we had any problem, I would jump inside my plane, I will visit the three of them, and we will agree, and whatever we agreed upon, we carry out. We carry the rest of Africa along with us. I will take care of West Africa and part of Central Africa and Gaddafi. I had to take, because Bouteflika will say, no, you handle Gaddafi. And then President Thabo Mbeki will handle Southern Africa, East Africa, and then, of course, the other thing that came in, if I may say, I'm going now, not just Africa and with the leadership in Africa by itself, but Africa and our development partners. But here, let me give one that we found difficult. America was not happy with the man in Iraq. What is
Saddam.
Saddam Hussein. And the Egyptian president sent an SOS message to me, and I went to Cairo. And he said, look, we have a problem in our hand. I said, what is the problem? He said, Hussein is a difficult man. We all know that. But he has maintained stability in his country and in the region until we can get a replacement for Hussein. Let us appeal to our American partner and friend to see how best we can handle this. And then I came here. And I made the presentation. And the presentation was thought a good presentation. But then the answer was, good presentation. But whether you are with us or not, we have made up our mind and our plan to go for Saddam Hussein. And that was what happened. Of course, the mess of removing Saddam Hussein is still with us till today, just like the one of Libya. Now, so what then do? We find ourselves holding together well as much as possible, especially with the coming into existence of AU and the new constitutive act of AU. We were able to work a little bit collectively together, but we also, on the economic side, we had greater inflow, if I can put it that way, from China into Africa. And that helped us. I think we must admit that, particularly for the first decade of this century. Our products get higher price, commodities. Well, of course, our Western partners were not too happy. Not only were not too happy, even what they said to us was demeaning. Oh, how are you getting on with your new colonial masters? Who are the new colonial masters? China. If China decides to buy things from us, why do they become our colonial master? If they decide to help us with infrastructure, do they become our colonial master as a result of that? If China is holding huge amount of American treasury bills, does that make China a colonial master of America? And well, I believe this was not in good taste.
Well, Baba, let me pick up on that point that you just made here, and just going back to some of the comments that you made about, African countries working together, being interconnected. And last year, the Wilson Center, we came out with an issue of our Wilson Quarterly. It was a double issue focused on Africa, and we simply named it Africa Matters, because no longer asking the question or trying to justify why the continent matters, but making it clear that Africa matters, period. And increasingly, we see that the African continent is becoming more critical to the US, but likewise the US as well also becoming critical to the continent. So that partnership, a mutually beneficial partnership, is important as we look to the future, as we look to the role that the African continent could play in this evolving global arena. I know I want to leave it open for questions because we have about 30 minutes, but just briefly, your points on US-Africa partnership. What can we learn from the lessons in the past, and what could we be doing to strengthen moving forward?
Well, Director, thank you very much. Well, let me go back to what I've said in part. In South Africa, we work together with the US, and we succeeded without really breaking any bone. The US started something, constructive engagement, I think they call it, with South Africa. And we said, no, there's nothing constructive about apartheid. They say we should ask for reform of apartheid, not elimination of apartheid. And we said apartheid is not possible of reformation because it is totally unacceptable. So let us eliminate apartheid. And I was involved. For instance, we had in Angola Cuban troops. We had in Angola South African troops. And then talking to the West, we came to the idea that, look, let Cuban troops withdraw, let South African troops withdraw, let Angola have its own security and stability, let Namibia be independent. Now, the president of Angola found it difficult to say to Cuba, Fidel Castro, come and withdraw your troops, with all that they have done, and they have done a lot. That is the truth. So he invited me and I went, and he looked at me and said, are you averse to going to Cuba? By then, I've only gone to Cuba once. And when I went, I didn't see Fidel Castro. So I said, no, I'm not. So I got what he wanted. And I went to Cuba. And I said to Fidel, well, I come to tell you that we are at the point of getting victory in Angola. So he brought out the battle map of Angola. I said, no, what are you talking about? There's a gun here, there's this one here, troops are here, South African troops are here. And I said, look, if Cuba troops are withdrawn, South African troops will be withdrawn, Namibia will be independent. He said, is that what I call victory? I said, well, that's victory. And he thought about it. He wasn't too happy, but he agreed. And he said one thing to me, he said, look, I will take out all Cuban troops, dead and alive. And of course, he took the dead and alive. Now, and that is how we achieve the withdrawal of South African troops from Angola, the withdrawal of Cuban troops from Angola, and on the, it was win-win for everybody. On the African side, we were happy. On the American side and the West, we were happy. On the Cuban side and those countries that supported Cuba, I think they were not unhappy. I won't say they were happy, but they will appear not to be unhappy. And that is working together. And I believe that, I said that in my introduction, that where we have worked together, we have succeeded together. Where we have got things taken off our hand, for whatever reason, it has not been what it should have been for us. So here, I believe that, and we have period. When I was military head of state and we were working on decolonization in Africa and apartheid, and this country was working on constructive engagement, and we were getting across to ourselves. And when President Carter came on the scene, we were able to move closely together and really together. And what was done then with President Carter, Cyrus Vance as Secretary of State, and Young in the AU, in the UN, and what we in Africa, President Julius Nyerere, President Kaunda, myself, what we did together really led to the elimination of colonialism in Africa and the defeat or removal of apartheid policy in South Africa. So I believe, like you rightly said, it's no question of does Africa matter. You cannot say that 1.2 billion people in the world do not matter. Now, if you say that, something must be, I think something must be wrong with you. You cannot say that. And it's like once I came to this country, and a friend of mine who was trying to sell things in China. China was not as open as it is now. And so I said, why are you going to China? He said, General, I said, yes. He said, can't you understand? I said, understand what? He said, you are a poultry farmer. I said, yes. He said, you imagine every China man and woman eating 1 egg a week. That would be 1.2 billion eggs a week. And if you can sell egg in China, you know what that means. Of course, I know what it means. And I believe that is reality. And I believe that the reality should be, we have a lot. We know many of our people, apart from the population of Africans that you have in this country, many of our people are educated here, and they are still being educated here. The system that we practice is easy for us, and most African countries, even the so-called Francophone, most of them are becoming bilingual. So speaking, communicating with the US is no longer not much of a problem. So I believe that what I saw, as I said, the way we work. Look, the unfortunate thing really is that the influence, or maybe not influence is the word, if I get a better word, I will put it, which particularly a country like Nigeria used to have. Look, when President Carter was here, as I said, as president, Cyrus Vance as Secretary of State, and Young, we worked together. America will do anything in Africa, but they will let us know. They are not taking permission from us, they are not, but they inform us. Now, anything can happen at the backyard of Nigeria, nobody will be told. I was, 5 days ago, I was in Cote d'Ivoire. Yesterday, when I was coming here, I stopped over in Togo. I didn't even tell President Faure. President Faure rushed to see me at the airport, and we were talking about Sahel. The truth is this: ECOWAS not holding Sahel as it should hold it will lead to a mess in that region. You have Ukraine, Russia, America, Turkey in a small place. That is the backyard of Nigeria. Nigeria is not alive to that. That is a disaster. So this is the issue. And then what does America want? America, rightly, I believe, will not open and sit down and fold its hand while the Sahel come under Russia. That's normal. We should understand that. And we don't need anybody to tell us that. And then we say, look, we will handle it. That's a former president, a former prime minister of Mali who came to brief me about the situation in Mali about 10 days ago. And he said Mali was expecting Nigeria to handle the issue of Niger Republic. 1/3 of the population of Niger Republic have relations in Nigeria. At least 1/3. A friend of mine, or not a friend, my colleague, Shehu Yaradua, who came from Katsina, used to tell me that when the closeness, when a woman is cooking her soup in Maradi, he will send her daughter across the to Nigeria to buy salt. That's how close we are. Now, so you cannot leave that. And when I was military head of state and when I was elected president, I used to give free fertilizer to Niger Republic. The reason is simple. Now, let them do their farming and stay there. Because if 250,000 Nigerians, don't laugh, cross the border, what it will cost me to look after 250,000 Nigerians will be much more than giving them fertilizer to stay in Niger Republic. So look, we have to look at this, and then the truth is that we mess up. That's the truth. Okay, is there what we can do now? I believe yes. From what I have heard, talking about the Sahel, the three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, they now are looking for what they will use to hold their country, the military. And what they are using is, the enemy outside. And ECOWAS has become part of the enemy outside. So asking them to come back into ECOWAS now may not be the right thing. But they are interested in security. They are interested in stability. They are interested in food security. They are, now let us give them this. Let's say to them, look, like a prodigal son, you've gone, okay, remain where you are. You are interested in peace, let us work for peace together. You are interested in security, let's work for security together. You are interested in stability, let's work for stability together. You are interested in food security and nutrition security, all these we can do together. And when you are ready, well, we will do. It's your home. You can come back to your home. But trying to force them now, it will not work. Well, I understand some people want regime change. Now, they will try and make sure that they hold firm for them not to have regime change. Talking about that, let me also say another one. About 18 months ago, I went to Guinea-Conakry. I spent 2 nights. I did not see the military leader, but I saw everybody else. He made me to see everybody else. But they said to me, he was out of Conakry. I don't think he was out of Conakry. He just didn't want me. But my conclusion of what I heard, what I saw, was that those people, they are not thinking of military and then we go in 3 years, in 4 years. No. They were thinking of staying for a generation. A generation. So when I observed that, I went to Ethiopia and I went to the chairperson of AU, Ambassador Faki. I said, look, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. This is my observation. Oh. He said, you are talking of Guinea-Conakry. You are not talking of my own country. It's the same thing. Gabon is the same thing. Niger hasn't come in then. Burkina Faso is the same thing. Mali is the same thing. I said, then what do we do about it? Because the measures that we have taken in the past, well, you boycott, you suspend, doesn't seem to work now. And he said, if I try to do something, the boys in my country will say it's because I have ambition to become president of my country. So, and that's true. They've accused him of that. Whether or not he wants to be president of his country. I don't know, but they have accused him. So, leadership. Let me put it this way. One, we need collective. People still talk about the time that Thabo Mbeki, Bouteflika, and I worked together. Two, there are some countries that must be able to play their role in leadership in the country, in the continent. And fortunately or unfortunately, Nigeria happened to be one of those countries that must be able, must put its money where its mouth is. Three, I believe that economic integration will work better and will be the precursor of political integration. And the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is one thing that we should commend our leaders for, that they brought about 3 or 4 years ago. 4, I believe that we need about 15 to 20 African countries that will be the ones that will hold Africa up. And some of those countries that should be able to do that, they are suffering either from Koshoko or from COVID-19. I don't know. I don't know which one is better if there's any choice to make.
But thank you so much, Baba. We have 5 minutes left. See, maybe this was a danger when we asked you to not have prepared remarks, because you completely ignored my speak for 20 minutes. So I see a couple of hands. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take just 3 questions. Please, I apologize if I'm not able to get to you. We're going to take just 3 questions. I ask you to please keep your question brief. State your name, affiliation, if you have one.
You want me to keep my answers brief.
I did. But please keep it brief and state your name and affiliation. Dr. Tomi, I'm going to come to you if you have any question or comment to make before I open it up to the audience.
Well, thank you so very much.
There's a microphone.
I was going to ask 2 questions, but I'll bring them together very quickly. And I was going to go from April 58, meeting in Accra, and then seeking first the political kingdom. But we know today that it's more important to seek the economic kingdom. You can see it from the restive youth that can be the bulge that gives us a demographic dividend. Now they're on the streets, and it can be terrible if it continues. The institutions that have evolved, Afrexim Bank, African Development Bank, all of those, what more do they need to do to facilitate intra-African trade? I mean, we saw during this last period of COVID how much more important that should be. So that's one part. The second part that I'll quickly go to is, if you look at the state of healthcare on the continent, it's really, really frightening. And if we don't get education and healthcare right, we're not going to get the economies of this continent moving. I mean, the United States has worked well with the AU, starting off on healthcare programs, but there's so much more to do. What should we be doing to take advantage of, like an African diaspora, in which we have 70% of our doctors, US, black doctors in America, Nigerian. How can we use this to make a difference? I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Prof. We'll take the lady in
Yeah,
Do
let
you
me.
want to answer those ones?
No, I want to take note so that the first one, the first point you made is the institutions, yeah, and how to deal with the bulge. And then the second one is the
Getting healthcare and education right. Okay.
yes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Val Okaru-Bisant. I'm the CEO, General Counsel, founder of Afro-Cosmo Development Impact USA. I'm also a Nigerian U.S. attorney and professor here in the U.S. Thank you so much, His Excellency Obasanjo. Just two questions related to your commentary. How do you mentioned stability within the framework of what you mentioned in Libya and also Iraq, right? How do we reconcile democracy with stability, especially in the African context, as we pursue our democracy, bearing in mind our varied socioeconomic conditions in different regions? How do we reconcile pursuing that with ensuring stability in the respective countries in Africa? Now, the second question, I want to commend you for your reputation when you were, after you left your office with the Green Revolution, and I remember very correctly that we didn't have as much of a problem with the Dutch disease. Now, within the context of Africa, what are the ways in which the leaders and, of course, the people can zero in on overcoming the Dutch disease and diversifying and focusing on, agricultural sector, incentivizing female and youth-owned SMEs to get more involved in that sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I unfortunately cannot take any more questions because we are already at time. Your Excellency,
I will try and cover this.
those questions.
Now, the institutions that will help us, whether we are dealing with population bulge and youth bulge and all that, the institution that we have will help, but the help will come from the leaders of each country. Now, trade, we have got this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, but where is the infrastructure? Now, to take your good from one part of Nigeria to another part, I deal in poultry. To get maize from the north to the south, where my poultry farm is, the price of transportation has gone up 400% in the last 2 years. Now, infrastructure, both when I talk of infrastructure, I talk of hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. So, yes, Africa Development Bank is doing its best. Yes, African Bank is doing its best. African Bank is looking for, instead of you having to pay in dollar, can you pay in local currency and that sort of thing. But all that will help. But then the countries themselves have to be the architect of their own fortune or their own misfortune. Now, healthcare. I believe that the health insurance scheme will go a long way. Unfortunately, in the last 15 months or thereabout in Nigeria, most of the people ordinary people who have to use imported drug have given up and have died. That is the truth. Now, maybe if they have working healthcare system, they will insurance, maybe they will have survived. Stability and democracy. I said, and I believe strongly on this, that Western liberal democracy, the way it was started, the way it was developed, the context and the content is not meant for us. And what we have gone, for instance, we don't talk of opposition, not to talk of loyal opposition in African system of governance. You sit down and work out consensus, communal way of doing things, and you agree, and everybody is a winner when you agree. Now you go on and say loyal opposition. In most African languages, opposition is enemy. Where do you have a loyal enemy? But in Europe, where Western liberal democracy began, they had monarchy. Monarchy was ruling. When you started, then you can be opposition and still be loyal to the monarchy. Who are you being loyal to when you have opposition in an African country? We have to rethink liberal democracy. I believe we can have democracy, but let it be democracy with African context and African content. I believe that. So, so when you talk of stability, then agriculture. I have always maintained that the first thing for you and for me, wherever we live, is personal security. That I'm safe, I sleep in my house, I'm safe, I go on the road, I'm safe. That's number one. Number two, health. And Pat talk about health. Number three is food. And in fact, if your food is right, it will also affect your health for good. So, if food is so important, what attention do we give to it? Food is so important that apart from, as I said, personal security, health security, it is food security next. And you should not give your food security to an outsider. You should not outsource your food security. The Japanese will buy rice from Thailand for about a third of what it takes them to produce rice. But it is a security issue. So they will rather spend double what it will cost them to import rice from Thailand to produce their own rice. Because whoever feeds you can enslave you.
Thank you so much, Baba. We're closing out now, and we are already past time.
Yeah.
I'm like, we could sit down and listen to you all day. So really, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you will come back again to the Wilson Center to continue this conversation on African leadership with us. Please join me in thanking His Excellency.
I want to talk
Before
to you.
we end, I also want to thank you so much. I also want to say a huge thanks to my colleagues on the Africa team. It's a small, lean team, but being able to pull this together. So Niat Afawaki, who is in the back, and Carol over there. Really want to thank the both of them for all the work that everyone put into pulling this event together. Encourage you all to please continue to check our website for other upcoming events. Right now, would like to also ask, please, for everyone to remain seated while we take His Excellency out to the elevator. But thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you very, very much. I apologize to those who have questions.
NoireTV, showing on Verizon Fios channel 269, Optimum channel 1100, and on Digicel. Or on our website www.noiretv.com, or download the app from the App Store or Play Store.